You did what I'm saying. If they all hollers, I'ma count it fast. Yeah, I wanted money, I couldn't enjoy class.
After putting mass amounts of work over the last 3 or 4 years, it seems that Suicide Boys have overtaken everybody in their respective lane, and are now leading the underground wave. Now don't get triggered when I say that, and I don't mean in literally every single aspect, but if you look at the pure number side of things, Suicide Boys have glowed the fuck up. It is obvious that Suicide Boys have overtaken artists like Bones and CURIOU, who both, a year ago, were probably bigger than them, and without the major co-signs that both of these artists have received, like Bones' placement on ASAP Rocky's At Long Last ASAP, and CURIOU's Rich Chigga feature, which exposed both of them to huge national audiences, the question starts to emerge: what has led to this explosion of the Suicide Boys? This video right here isn't going to be focusing on their history and come up as much as it is analysing the key factors to their success, in my opinion. Now, before we get into it, just a little bit of history.
Tell me what you know. Buy the motherfucker out the bottom with a gold grill, gleam and make audio prime. Stop.
Suicide Boys comprises of Scrim and Ruby, who are blood cousins and hail from New Orleans. Scrim's background was as a DJ, and as well as vocals, he handles a lot of the production you'll hear when listening to Suicide Boys. Ruby, on the other hand, focuses completely on vocals, and he comes from a punk rock background. The two started to release hip hop music separately before realizing they made better sounding music together, and they decided to join forces seriously around 2014. That was a brief overview of their history, but enough talking about them, and let's dive right in. Also, before we get into this video, I just want to give a quick shout out to my friend Ben, who helped me with this piece.
Take a shot of your own piss.
No. Good. Do it for the 5
In my curious case of XXXTentacion video, I explained the concept of realness and how hip hop fans are obsessed with the idea. For those who haven't watched the video, I'll give a rundown. If an artist is perceived to be real, then fans feel a special connection and authenticity in listening to that artist. This is why artists like 21 Savage and J. Cole are so popular. To their respective fan bases, they are perceived to have lived a certain life, hold certain ideals, and put forth certain notions that make them real. 21 with his ultra blunt description of the reality that he faced, and Cole with his conscious, occasionally thought-provoking messages. Both of these guys represent different sides of hip-hop, but are largely popular for the real image. And with the explosion of the internet rap movement, it has given birth and added new meaning to this idea of realness, where certain fan bases that exist on the internet are attracted to or resonate with ideas of loneliness, depression, self-hatred, and death. Suicide Boys are the perfect example of this special connection that exists within a certain fanbase on the internet and the aforementioned ideas within today's underground rap landscape. The image of Suicide Boys is created and portrayed both within their music and outside of it in interviews. Listen to their music and you will get a vivid picture of a couple drug-fueled suicidal social rejects that use their music to express their view on a fucked up world they inhabit, and the pain, pleasure, and everything in between that they have experienced in all their years of living. And listen to the interviews and you will get pretty much the exact same picture. Well, that's not entirely accurate, but listen to the interviews and one thing stands out about everything else. Their music isn't an act, their music isn't a mask, and their music isn't a shtick. Everything that they're talking about is real and has been lived. And because of the confronting reality behind it, it makes fans connect, resonate, and relate with them in ways they simply don't with other artists. The reality I speak of is that they were ready to kill themselves if the Suicide Boys didn't work out. Scrim was really addicted to heroin and has basically tried every drug under the sun. And Ruby, at the time of the No Jumper interview at least, was stuck in a 9-to-5 dead-end job that he hated after failing in the punk scene for years. Their lives were grim, and because of the obvious reality behind the situation, when Scrim says,
Locked in my room, 4 black walls, tied the noose, no recall, no result.
or when Ruby says, "I matter but I don't matter," you believe these were real emotions, experiences, or feelings that were felt at the time or went through previously. Furthermore, you always hear artists talk of how they would have killed themselves if not for music, or they couldn't see themselves doing anything else and they would be dead without it. But when Suicide Boys say, "We were gonna kill ourselves if Suicide Boys never panned out," you fucking believe them. Their statements within their music hold weight to the listener, and that's a powerful thing. Whereas, in light of recent interviews, it has become evident that artists such as Future, who, despite in his music, describes crippling drug addictions, similar to Scream in a sense, is simply an artistic persona he puts on in his music, and he doesn't really function like that in real life. Although this hasn't stopped me from listening to his music, it has altered a connection I have with a certain line, phrase, or song or features, where I take them with a grain of salt and I don't feel a deep-seated connection between certain emotions and notions in his music. It takes away from the music when you realise it's all an act. Suicide Boys, on the other hand, because of the reality behind it, it adds to the music and helps make that deep-seated connection between what they're saying and the listeners because of the actuality behind it. And as they explore ideas such as death, drug addiction, and loneliness, it helps the listener in a way explore, expand, and accept what similar emotions or experiences they may be going through, because the listener acknowledges that Ruby and Scream at the end of the day are just like them and have been exactly where they are or in a similar position to where that listener may be. Suicide Boys in this sense almost acts like a family for their fans, with fans feeling a sense of acceptance of their personal struggles or problems that they may have in their music. They may feel alone, they may feel depressed, and they may not want to share it publicly, but Suicide Boys takes these fans under their wing, and as cliche or corny as it sounds, makes them an extended part of their life, helping them deal with feelings of loneliness and depression. Don't take my word for it though, just speak to a diehard fan of the Suicide Boys and they will, for the most part, reiterate similar sentiments. You can call them and their fanbase corny, cringy, edgy white boys, or whatever the fuck you want to say, but at the end of the day, Suicide Boys have a real and profoundly positive effect on their fanbase, and this cannot be denied.
You're alone, you're not. You go through your family.
Their image acts as a double effect, whereby people who watch their interviews, some of which may never have heard the music before, become intrigued in their history and the harsh reality behind their backstory, either intriguing them to check out their music, or if they were already fans, propelling the love they had for their music. And secondly, it helps grip listeners, creating a special connection, relatability, and genuineness in listening to them that they feel with few other artists. The reality behind their image is what I think is the biggest reason to their success thus far. And secondly, we get onto their music, because lyrics and image can only go so far when you consider the popularity of an artist. The music in and of itself actually has to be enjoyable. Influenced by artists like 3 6 Mafia and even newer artists like Lil Ugly Mane, the beats behind Suicide Boys are for the most part grimy, dark, and often have a chilling, sinister aesthetic surrounding them, creating a perfect canvas for their fast flows and equally haunting lyrics. Straight off the bat, I think a huge reason why so many people enjoy their music is a skill set that both of the artists possess and flex within their music. The flows they create and the pockets they find within the beats showcase their raw rapping ability, making it easy to bob your head along to even if you don't enjoy the lyrics. Adding to this is the personal flair each of them bring lyrically, with Ruby having more lyrics focused on women and Scream, who goes more in depth with his personal struggles battling drug addiction. This means even if you don't find one particular style gripping, you may find enjoyment in the other. In addition to this, in a scene that is flooded with copycats and people who directly clone the aesthetic of other artists, I think Suicide Boys are able to come out with a sound, lyrical direction, and aesthetic that made them stand out. Not that their style of music hasn't been done before, but I think they took what other people had done before them and added their own unique aspect to it. And the extremity and vividness of their music was a fresh breath of air in the crowded underground rap landscape. But that's not to downplay their music. Not only was it a fresh breath of air, but their ability to describe and paint pictures of what they are going through is hauntingly beautiful, and they are at their peak when they are peeling back and revealing layers to themselves. Furthermore, their ability to change up their vocal style, which sometimes happens mid-song, is a strong point of their music, where from one line to another they can go from double-time rapping to metal-like screaming. Although it is bold and jarring sometimes, this style hasn't been explored much within hip-hop until recently, and when it works, it fucking works, and makes you rage and lose your mind. The last point I want to touch on is the trap influence within their instrumentals. It's no secret that underground hits from the likes of Young Lean, X, and Bones tend to have a trap influence to them. With the booming bass and chopping and changing trap drum patterns, it's simply the biggest and most appealing sound within hip-hop right now. And with most of Scream's production leaning in that trap influence lane, it means that nearly all of their music becomes whip friendly and are instant bangers, and I think this adds to the appeal of their music.
It's hard for me to put into words like what my life was and what they have changed it to, because without them, I make music for me, but at the end of the day, it's good to know that there's this many people that fucking feel what I'm talking about.
And a couple smaller points to finish off the video. I think their sheer work ethic is a big part of their success. It's rare that a month or two goes past without a new song, let alone a few months without a new tape. They tour constantly and stay putting in work. It's simple, the more music and tours, the more opportunities to reach more people, create more fans, turn casual fans into hardcore ones, and so on and so forth. It's pretty straightforward. Importantly though, they don't let concert releases get in the way of quality, ensuring all of their music sounds properly mastered and finished before release.
Now, for the stipulations of ass eating, gotta bleach the anus. Gotta bleach the anus.
And lastly, we get to cosigns. Although they haven't had huge industry cosigns like the likes of Puya, Young Lean and Bones all have, I'm specifically going to touch on the Puya cosign they received in late 2015. Suicide Boys themselves even admit that this helped expose them to a new fanbase. But I think it's kind of funny, because before the cosign, it was pretty clear that Puya was ahead of the Suicide Boys in terms of popularity. And not even a year after the tape, and I think they passed Puya. This tape has ultimately helped both artists, but I think it is evident that it has helped Suicide Boys massively, and I don't think they would be on the level they are without this tape. All in all though, I think it's a combination of great music, the Puya cosign, their real image, and the way they function as a family for their fans that has led to the explosion of Suicide Boys. Alright guys, that's all from me in this video today. Thanks a lot for watching. Please like, subscribe, and follow me in all social